I always thought my wedding day would be the happiest moment of my life, a day surrounded by family, tears of joy, and unconditional love. But as I stood at the altar, clinging to my bouquet with trembling hands, the church pews on my side remained painfully empty. Not a single face from my family was there. No mother adjusting my veil, no father walking me down the aisle, and no sister whispering jokes to calm my nerves. They all chose not to come. This isn't just a story about abandonment on what should have been the most sacred day of my life. This is the story of years of quiet manipulation, favoritism, betrayal, and finally, the twist of fate that made them reap what they sowed. They thought ignoring me would be just another way to control me. What they didn't expect was that life has its own way of settling scores. Because while they were busy pretending I didn't exist, karma was paying close attention. I knew they weren't coming even before the wedding day arrived. But knowing something doesn't prepare you for feeling it. There's a difference between expecting pain and actually living through it. It started quietly, like most family rifts do. You never notice the first crack. You tell yourself, it's nothing. It'll pass. But then the silences get longer. The comments sting a little more. And one day, you wake up and realize your place in the family was never solid. It was conditional. I just hadn't seen it. I was the oldest. The responsible one. The one who kept the peace when mom and dad fought, who helped my sister with her homework, who stayed home to cook when everyone else went out. That's who I was to them, useful. Dependable, invisible. My sister, Laura, was the adored one. She was loud, impulsive, dramatic. She could set the house on fire and my parents would somehow blame me for leaving matches where she could find them. I never resented her. Not at first. I told myself it was love. That being the steady one meant I had to love harder to make up for what she lacked in stability. But over time, love that's never returned becomes something else. Something darker. And that's what I carried with me the day I sent out the wedding invitations. Didn't expect a celebration. I wasn't that naive. But I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd make the effort. A text. A phone call. A question like, do you need help with the dress, or how are you feeling? But the days passed. Then weeks. Nothing. My fiancé, Daniel, watched me check the mailbox every morning with this quiet sadness in his eyes. He never said it out loud, but I know he was angry on my behalf. His family, in contrast, was overwhelming in their love. His mother cried when she saw my dress. His brothers argued over who'd give the best speech. His aunt offered to sew the table runners herself. My family. Silence. Not even an RSVP. I tried calling my mom once. She let it ring. I sent a message to my dad. Delivered. Not read. Laura left me on read after 3 dots that never turned into words. Daniel begged me to stop checking. He said I was torturing myself. But how do you give up on the people who raised you? Who are tied to your earliest memories? I kept waiting for the miracle moment. The last-minute save. The rom-com ending where they show up just as the doors open. But the only thing that came was the sound of a door that had been slowly closing. For years finally slamming shut. On the morning of my wedding, I still kept a seat for each of them. I told the planner not to remove the name cards. I sat through makeup with a fake smile and a stomach that felt like it was turning inside out. Every time the door creaked, I looked up hoping it would be them. Every single time, it wasn't, and then, the moment came. I walked down the aisle, alone. No father. No family. Just Daniel waiting at the altar, his eyes full of love and quiet fury. His mother was sobbing in the front row. His brothers stood tall, proud. But my side? Empty. I got married to the love of my life in a room half full. But in that emptiness, I finally understood the truth. It wasn't about what I did or didn't do. It was never about me not being enough. It was about them. Their inability to love anyone they couldn't control, but something changed in me that day. I let go of the dream of a family that would never exist. I looked into Daniel's eyes and realized, for the first time, I was starting my own, and just when I thought the worst was over, karma began to stir. Not in the way I expected, and not immediately. But it was already in motion. 3 months after my wedding, I received a cream-colored envelope in the mail. No return address, no personal note, just a generic invitation with embossed letters and gold foil. It was Lara's baby shower. I held the card for a long time, just staring at it, my fingers trembling slightly. It smelled faintly of the same perfume our mother used to wear. That familiar scent, once comforting, now made my stomach twist. No message. No apology. No acknowledgement of what had happened at my wedding. They hadn't even replied to my invitation, hadn't sent a single text, and now they expected me to show up, smile, and celebrate. Daniel found me standing by the window, still holding it. He didn't ask what it was. He just looked at my face. And knew, "You don't owe them anything," he said softly, but the worst part wasn't the invitation, it was the post that came the next day. A photo. My parents, my sister, my aunts. All dressed up. Laughing. Celebrating Lara's pregnancy. My mother holding her stomach like it was holy. My father giving a toast. The caption read, "Family is everything." I sat on the floor and cried for an hour. I didn't want to go. Every instinct told me not to. But there was a part of me that needed answers. I needed to know what I had done to deserve being erased. I needed someone to say it out loud, to my face. And I think, deep down, I still wanted to be chosen. Even now, Daniel didn't try to stop me when I told him I'd go. He just asked if I wanted him to come with me. I said no. So I went. Alone, the baby shower was held at my parents' house. Nothing had changed. Same creaky porch swing. Same uneven bricks in the walkway. Same sound of wind chimes at the front door, but when I walked in, it was like stepping into another life. One I no longer belonged to. Lara was glowing in a pale blue dress, surrounded by gifts and guests. My mother was laughing with neighbors. My father was manning the grill like it was a sacred duty. They saw me. I know they did. But no one came to greet me. I stood there, in the doorway, holding the gift I had carefully wrapped the night before. A soft hand-knitted baby blanket I spent weeks making, stitch by stitch. Something my grandmother taught me when I was little. I walked up to Lara. She looked at me like I was a ghost. She took the gift without saying thank you. "Did you get married?" she asked, loud enough for people nearby to hear. I stared at her, stunned. "You know I did." She gave a tight smile. "We never got an invitation." I felt something crack inside me. Not a break, but something quieter. Like a string snapping. I sent it. "All of you got one? None of you came." My mother walked over, placing a hand on Lara's shoulder. "Let's not do this here." "No," I said, my voice steady now. "Let's." "Why didn't you come?" My father stepped in then, his expression unreadable. "Because we didn't approve. We didn't raise you to marry someone like him." "Someone? Like who?" I asked. "He's not one of us," my mother said simply. It's when I finally saw it clearly. It had never been about me. Not really. It was about control. About punishing me for choosing love over loyalty to their silent rules. Daniel came from a different background, a different culture. That's all it took. I left before the cake was served. Left the gift on the table and walked out without looking back. I didn't cry this time, because on the way home, my phone lit up. It was Daniel. He had just received a call from a mutual friend. Something had happened at his job. An unexpected opportunity. A massive one. The kind that could change everything for us, and suddenly, while my family clung to old traditions and their curated image of what family should look like, life was opening a new door for me. It was just the beginning of what karma had planned. Daniel's voice was calm when he called, but I could hear the weight beneath it. They offered me the position, he said. It's real. It's happening. A tech company overseas had reached out to him months earlier, impressed by his research and his unique approach to ethical programming. It started as a casual conversation, one of those long-shot opportunities we never thought would go anywhere. But here it was. A full relocation package. A salary that felt unreal. And a chance for both of us to start again, far from the shadow of my family. Sat in our living room, still in the dress I wore to Lara's baby shower, the smell of their house clinging to me like smoke. It was surreal. Just hours before, I'd been made to feel like I didn't belong in my own bloodline. And now, life was offering me a clean slate. There was one condition, though. We'd have to leave within 6 weeks. That meant selling our apartment, quitting our jobs, and saying goodbye to everything familiar. And I didn't hesitate. Not for a second. Strange how quickly you can detach from a place once you accept you were never really wanted there. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell Lara. Part of me wanted to. I wanted to see the flicker of realization in their eyes that they were losing me for good. But another part, the stronger one, wanted to leave in silence. Let the space I left behind speak louder than any confrontation ever could. The weeks flew by. Our apartment slowly emptied, each box sealed with quiet excitement. Daniel was glowing with energy, full of plans for the future. And me? I felt lighter. Like I was finally walking away from a weight I had carried for far too long. But just when I thought they had fully erased me from their lives, my mother called. I almost didn't answer. I stared at the screen until it almost went dark. But something in me, curiosity, maybe made me pick up. She didn't say hello. Lara's in the hospital, she said. It's the baby. She's early. Her voice cracked, but not in the way I remembered. There was no warmth, no motherly softness. Just panic. Cold, sharp panic. I stayed quiet. She's asking for you, she added. Please. I don't know who else to call. I wanted to scream. Why me? Why now? After everything. After choosing to leave me standing at my own wedding. After pretending I didn't exist. After saying Daniel wasn't one of us. Now. Suddenly, I was someone to call. Daniel found me sitting on the kitchen floor when he got home. I was holding my phone, frozen. You don't have to go, he said gently. They made their choice. I nodded. But that wasn't the part haunting me. It was Lara. The little girl I used to braid hair for. The sister who used to sneak into my bed during storms. I hated what she had become. I hated how she let them turn her against me. But I didn't hate her. Not entirely. I went to the hospital. When I walked into the room, my mother looked up with swollen eyes. My father stood in the corner like a statue. And Lara? She was pale, exhausted, and very, very scared. She looked at me like I was the only person she trusted in the world. I don't want to lose her, she whispered. I don't know what to do. And suddenly, it was like we were children again. No pride. No anger. Just fear. Just love. Raw and fragile. The nurse came in a moment later and told us Lara was stable. The baby might come early, but the doctors were optimistic. Relief flooded the room like oxygen. And I felt myself exhale for the first time in days, but then my mother turned to me and said something I'll never forget. You should stay. Be here. We can be a family again. I looked at her, really looked, and realized something painful. She didn't want me back. She wanted the version of me that used to serve, stay quiet, keep the peace. And that girl was gone. No, I said. I'm leaving. For good. She blinked like she didn't understand. But I didn't owe her an explanation anymore. As I walked out of that hospital room, I didn't look back, and that's when karma truly began to unfold. I landed in Amsterdam 2 weeks later. A new city, a new language humming around us, and a sky that somehow felt wider. The air was different. It smelled like bread, rain, and possibility. Daniel was already immersed in his new role, respected, welcomed, seen. And I started to breathe again. I didn't know how tense I had been until I wasn't anymore. My shoulders dropped. My sleep deepened. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. Slowly, I was becoming someone I hadn't met before, me, without the pressure of being anyone else's version of a daughter or sister. But karma has its own schedule. It was a cold Tuesday afternoon when I got the message. Not a call, not a letter, just a forwarded screenshot from a mutual cousin back home. It was my father. His name in the local news. Fraud allegations. Embezzlement. A small real estate scheme he had kept quiet for years had finally caught up with him. The article was blunt: assets frozen, criminal investigation underway, potential jail time. The comments below were merciless. I sat still for a long time. I didn't know what to feel. Satisfaction? No. Pity? Not quite. But there was a certain stillness in me, a sense of balance finally returning. The man who once said Daniel wasn't one of us had been hiding who he truly was the entire time. The irony wasn't lost on me. Later that night, I found an email from my mother. Just one line: "We could use your help." That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement of how they'd treated me. Just a thin rope, thrown across an ocean, expecting me to grab hold. Daniel saw the email too. He didn't say a word. Just sat beside me, his hand resting on mine, waiting for my choice, and I realized something: they hadn't changed. Not really. They were still the same people who only reached for me when they needed something. Still incapable of real remorse. Still playing the game of pride and appearances, even while drowning. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new tab and donated a large portion of my latest freelance commission to a foundation for women estranged from their families. It felt right. Like planting something new where something toxic used to grow. But karma wasn't done yet. A few days later, I received a message from Laura. This time, not a plea. Not a manipulation. Just a truth: I left them. Those 3 words changed everything. She told me about the night after the hospital, how she overheard our mother blaming me for everything going wrong in their lives. How our father screamed at her for not controlling the narrative, for letting their dirty laundry be exposed. And Laura, quiet, newly maternal Laura, finally snapped. She moved out with the baby. Got a job. Cut contact. I thought I was protecting them by turning on you, she wrote. But all I did was lose the only person who actually showed up for me. She sent a photo. Her holding a newborn baby girl, eyes wide and peaceful. She'd named her Elise, after our grandmother, and then came the line that finally broke me: "If you still want to be her aunt, I'd love that." I cried. Deep, guttural sobs that came from somewhere buried. I cried not just for what had been lost, but for what could now begin. Something untainted. Something honest. I told her I'd fly back. Just for a visit. No longer out of obligation, but out of choice. Karma doesn't always come in flames and destruction. Sometimes, it arrives quietly. Through a child's name. Through a door finally closed. Through another gently opening. I returned 6 months after Elise was born. Laura met me at the airport holding her, wrapped in a yellow blanket I had knitted years ago. She hadn't known I'd kept it. I hadn't known she'd remember it. We stood there in the arrivals hall, 2 women who had once shared a bedroom. And now stood with 1,000 silent miles between them, and yet, something about the way she held that baby told me we were going to be okay. She didn't apologize. Not with words. But she didn't need to. Her eyes held something far heavier than regret. They held accountability. And to me, that meant more. We spent the first few days quietly. Walks through the park. Late nights talking over cups of tea. While Elise slept. Laura told me she was in therapy. That she'd started journaling. That she had a job she liked, even if it didn't pay much yet. But she smiled when she spoke now. It was the first time I'd seen her look like her own person instead of an echo of our mother. On the fourth day, she asked if I wanted to visit the house. I said no at first. But something about Elise's tiny hands and the softness in Laura's voice made me reconsider. I wasn't going back as the version of myself they used to pick apart. I was going back as someone rebuilt. Someone they no longer had power over. The house was smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just in presence. Like the fear had been stripped out of its walls. My mother opened the door. Her eyes were puffy, her posture stiff. She looked older. Tired in a way that went beyond age. She didn't smile. We sat in the living room. The same beige carpet. The same family photos on the mantel, except my wedding photo was nowhere to be found. That absence was louder than any insult. I heard you've done well for yourself, my mother said after a long silence. I didn't answer. She continued, your father's trial starts soon. It's been difficult. I waited, but no apology came. Just that same brittle tone she always used when the world didn't behave the way she wanted. Why did you come? She asked finally. I didn't come for you, I said. I came for Laura. And Elise. She flinched like I'd slapped her. But I didn't soften it. I wasn't here to make her comfortable. I had spent my entire life folding myself into smaller and smaller shapes just to fit inside her idea of love. I was done shrinking. She didn't try to stop me when I stood up to leave. She didn't even ask if she could see Elise. That part hurt, more than I expected. I walked out of that house for the last time. I knew it deep in my bones, there would be no more returns. No more holding out hope that they'd become people they were never capable of being. And that was okay. Closure, I learned, doesn't always come with mutual understanding. Sometimes, it comes when you simply decide enough. Back at Lara's apartment, Elise was napping. Laura handed me a cup of tea and sat beside me. I didn't know how broken we were until you left, she said. It forced me to look at everything. I nodded. Sometimes leaving is the most honest thing we can do. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. I hope Elise never has to. And that's when I knew the cycle had truly been broken. I flew back to Amsterdam a week later. Daniel met me at the gate with flowers and his ridiculous grin. We walked home through cobblestone streets. My suitcase rolling behind me, full of tiny clothes and a few photo prints Laura had tucked in. I looked at him and said, they never really saw me. But you did. And in his eyes, I saw everything I had ever wanted in a family: honesty, warmth, and space to be entirely myself. They say blood is thicker than water. But I've learned that love, real love, is thicker than everything, and sometimes, the family you choose is the one that saves you.